نحمده ونصلي على رسوله الكريم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم حدثنا الحميدي عبد الله بن زبير قال حدثنا سفيان قال حدثنا يحيى بن سعيد الأنصاري قال أخبرني محمد بن إبراهيم التيمي أنه سمع القمة بن وقاص الليثي يقول سمعت عمر بن الخطاب رضي الله تعالى عنه على المنبر قال سمعت رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم يقول إنما الأعمال بالنيات وإنما لكل امرئ ما نوى فمن كانت هجرته إلى دنيا يصيبها أو إلى امرأة ينكحها فهجرته إلى ما هاجر إليه. My respected listeners, at this very moment we are all sitting in the circle of Hadith, Dars Hadith. In my last week's circle I mentioned that I will only start and begin with the Dars Bukhari when my Hadhrat Ustaz Maulana Bilal will allow me and will let me know from where to start. Let me make this clear to you. I never ever thought, nor it ever came to mind that I will ever give a Dars of Bukhari. If I'm sitting here to give you the Dars of Bukhari, is only because Hadhrat Maulana Bilal Damat Barakatuh Aliyah, he commanded me. It was his hukum that you give this dars. So therefore I'm giving it. The reality is I'm not capable of this. This is the reality. But because I was young and old, that the Quran is protected by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Everybody knows this. Even the children know that the Quran is in the protection of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. No one will able to make any changes in the Quran. No one will ever make any changes in the Quran. Why? Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has taken this responsibility upon himself. Inna nahnu nazzalna dhikr wa inna lahu lahafidhun. That we have sent down this Quran and we will ourselves, we will protect it. No one will ever be able to make any alteration in the Quran, not even one letter. Everybody knows this. My respected listeners, we should also know this fact. As the Quran has been preserved by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and it will remain forever to the day of judgment in the protection of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Similarly, we should also keep in our minds the very ahadith of our Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam has also been preserved by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. In this verse, Surah Hijr, the verse of Surah Hijr, Inna nahnu nazzalna dhikra, that we have sent down the Quran and we will protect it. It not only includes the Quran, it also includes the sayings of Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. As the Quran is protected by Allah, each and every word of our Prophet ﷺ has been protected by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. For this very purpose, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created such men who dedicated their lives for this, for the science of Hadith, for the Sunnah, and for the words and the aqwal and the saying and the noble habits of Prophet ﷺ. They sacrificed everything and they set up some rules for this task. Such rules that no one would dare come forward and say, this is the hadith. Why? Because if he matches those rules, then one will check whether this, he falls into that category or not. So there's, they set up such, concrete and such difficult, those rules for the science of hadith. They separated the falsehood from the right. Which hadith is sahih hadith, which hadith is which is fabricated, just made up by someone. One can straight away will tell, the people who are expert in this field, they will be able to tell, whether this hadith is fabricated or meaning, just made up by someone, or is it hadith Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So we should always remember and keep this in our minds. And we should carry on this message to our children. We should let them know, we should inform them, we should tell them, as the Quran is protected by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, each and every single word of our Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam has been protected. It is in the protection of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Why? Because if we say the Quran is protected and the hadith of Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam is not protected, then remember, such people are trying to say the Quran is also not protected. Why? Because the hadith of Prophet ﷺ is the explanation of the Quran. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala declares by saying to Prophet ﷺ, وَأَنزَلْنَا إِلَيْكَ الذِّكْرَ لِتُبَيِّنَ لِلنَّاسِ مَا نُزِّلَ إِلَيْهِمْ. We have sent down this Quran to you so that you explain to people what has been revealed to you. So if we take out the hadith of Prophet ﷺ, and if we say, no, this hadith, as our Ustaz Maulana Bilal, last Sunday he mentioned that there are some people who are known as the Parvezis, the Munkarini hadith, they are the one who are saying, no, hadith is not a reliable source. Why? Because it came into the book, in the form of book, our Prophet 200 years after the death of our Prophet ﷺ. So keep this in your mind. Even the hadith of Prophet ﷺ was even being written in the days of Prophet ﷺ. Just keep this in your mind. People think, the Sahaba Ikram, those people that were ummiyin, the unlettered people, they were not educated. They were, although the majority was not, they were not educated, but there were some personalities among them who were educated. So even when in the days of Prophet ﷺ, the hadith of Prophet ﷺ was being written, and Sahabas used to write the hadith, and also they used to memorize the hadith. Now, the personality who compiled all the hadiths of Bukhari, this book Bukhari, his name is Mohammed bin Ismail. Imam Mohammed bin Ismail, and he was from Bukhara, one of the states of Russia. These six authentic books, all the authors of these six authentic books are non-Arabs. They are non-Arabs. And this is you can say this is the mu'jiza of the Islam. This is the mu'jiza of Islam, that the six authentic books, they have been compiled by such personalities who were not Arabs, they were non-Arabs. Authentic books. Now, among these six authentic books, Ibn Majah, just one thing came to mind now, just to let you know, even you will find some hadiths which are da'if. Today the concept of people is, when they hear, this hadith is da'if, then they think it's not a hadith. This is their mentality. This is, when this comes in your front of someone, this hadith is da'if, they think this is not a hadith. This is the concept of common people. When they hear this hadith is da'if, they assume that this is not a hadith. This is wrong. Even da'if hadith is the hadith of Prophet ﷺ, the very words of Prophet ﷺ. So you will ask, why is it called da'if? It's called da'if because one of the narrators, maybe when these people who were expert in this science, in this field, when they found out that this narrator, maybe there is a weakness in his memory, so then they will class this hadith as a weak hadith. Whereas the hadith itself is the hadith of Prophet ﷺ. These are the very words of Prophet ﷺ. So our Prophet ﷺ's hadith, they are, every word of Prophet ﷺ which has come to us, they are all actually the words of Prophet ﷺ. So Muhammad bin Ismail rahimahullah, the Imam, he compiled, I was going to say about Ibn Majah rahimahullah. Our Ustaz Maulana Islam al-Haq rahimahullah, who taught us Bukhari Shareef. Maulana Islam al-Haq rahimahullah, who taught us Bukhari Shareef, and he passed away in Madinat al-Munawwara in the month of Ramadan, and he is buried in Jannatul Baqi. One thing he used to say, I can remember he said once, he said, look, out of these 6 authentic books, Ibn Majah, it contains some Zaif Hadith. But look, how come this book, Ibn Majah, has been included among the 6 authentic books? What's the reason behind this? He used to say maybe Ibn Majah rahimahullah may have made some du'as at night to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and due to his du'as, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accepted his du'as, and eventually his book was included among the 6 authentic books. What do we learn from here? Imam Shafi rahimahullah used to say, Sihamul layali la tukhti. He used to say, the arrows of night never miss the target. He used to say, Imam Shafi, he used to say, the Sihamul layali la tukhti. The arrows of night never miss the target. Meaning, what did he used to mean by the arrows? Du'as. He used to say the du'as which are made at night, they are always answered by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So what we learn, the reason I mentioned this, that we should never give up making dua. We should never, some people, they say, oh, I've been making dua for my child, my son, my daughter, but I cannot see any changes in my daughter and my son. And then they give up making dua. Never ever give up making dua. Always keep on making dua. Your dua is never ever rejected by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. One day you will feel, you will taste the fruit of your dua. As Ibn Majah rahimahullah, although his book contains some Zaif Hadith, but it was the result of his du'as that his book was included amongst the 6 authentic books. So Imam Bukhari rahimahullah, he belonged to a family, a very pious family, and his father Ismail rahimahullah was also one of the ulama. He was the alim, and before he passed away, just before his father passed away and before his death, what he said to the people who were around him? He said, the wealth which I am leaving behind, not even 1 dirham is doubtful. Not even 1 dirham of my wealth which I am leaving behind is doubtful. And Imam Bukhari rahimahullah became inheritor of that very wealth which was earned by his father through halal, permissible sources. And when Imam Bukhari rahimahullah became inheritor after the death of his father, Imam Bukhari rahimahullah, it is mentioned, he spent that wealth in the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He gave it in the charity, and he used to spend his wealth on those of his students who were poor, who were in need. And Imam Bukhari rahimahullah, just before we go on forward and explain the hadith, I would just like to shed some light on Imam Bukhari rahimahullah. Imam Bukhari rahimahullah, you've been hearing that about many other imams, they used to finish the Quran every day in the month of Ramadan. Imam Bukhari rahimahullah was also amongst those who used to, in the month of Ramadan, at daytime, he used to finish 1 Quran. And it is mentioned at night in the month of Ramadan, after the Salatul Taraweeh. After Salatul Taraweeh, he would stand in the Tahajjud prayer, and in 3 days he used to finish 1 Quran. After Salatul Taraweeh, at daytime he used to finish 1 Quran, and at night he used to read, after Salatul Taraweeh, his own Tahajjud prayer, and in his Tahajjud prayer he used to read the Quran, and 3 days he used to finish the Quran. Meaning, in the month he used to finish 40 Qurans in the month of Ramadan. This was Imam Bukhari. And Imam Bukhari rahmatullah, one saying, listen to this now. Imam Bukhari rahmatullah, he says, I hope that on the day of judgment there is one sin that Allah Almighty will not hold me accountable for it. There's one sin, particularly, he used to say, for a sure, he could say, there is one sin I can say on the day of judgment, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will not ask me that why did you commit this sin? Allah will not ask me this. And you know which sin is that? That is the very sin which is very common in our society today. that very sin, he said that I hope that on the day of judgment, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will not hold me accountable for it, which is today, in this era, in our society, it is very common within the general public and within the ulama. And that is backbiting. He said, on the day of judgment, I can hope that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will not ask me about backbiting, because why? He said, then he mentions the reason why. He said, because I have never ever backbited. You know, the reason I mention this so that we learn a lesson from this. When the pious personalities are mentioned, it is mentioned that the rahmat of Allah descends. You know, when they are mentioned, the rahmat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala descends on the people who are sitting in that gathering and listening to their mention. So Imam Bukhari rahmatullah alayhi, he says that, you know, Allah on the day of judgment will not ask me about this sin, because why? Because I never ever backbited. Now let me tell you about Maulana Salam al-Haq, our own stars. I have not heard from him myself, but I've heard Maulana Salim Dorat from Leicester. He is also his shagird and his student. He also studied in Darul Umm. I heard from one of the bayans, Maulana Salim Dorat is saying in his bayan that we've heard from Maulana Salam al-Haq, our teacher who taught us Bukhari. He used to say that I hope that on the day of judgment, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will not ask me about backbiting, because I never backbite. You know, these were the personalities, you know. Why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given them so popularity? Because number one, they refrain from the sins. And number two, they love the Sunnah of Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and the Hadith of Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So Imam Bukhari rahimahumullah, you know, when he passed away from his grave, they said for many weeks people could smell the fragrance of Jannah from his grave. And he was born in the month of Shawwal on Friday after Jummah prayer. And he passed away in the month of Shawwal on the night of Eid al-Fitr. The very blessed night. The night regarding which Prophet ﷺ says that whosoever will worship in that very night, meaning the night of Eid al-Fitr or the night of Eid al-Adha, our Prophet ﷺ says whosoever will worship Allah, you know, will stand up in the prayer or will do the recitation or will remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on the day of judgment when all the hearts will die, his heart will not die. And Eid al-Fitr is one of the nights in which the du'as is accepted. The dua is accepted, and also when one worships Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in that very night, Jannah becomes wajib for him. Imam Bukhari rahimahullah, he passed away in the month of Shawwal, the first night of Shawwal on Eid al-Fitr, and he was buried next day after Dhuhr prayer on the Eid day. And Imam Bukhari rahmatullah alayhi, one of the pious Imam mentions, I saw a dream. And in my dream, I see that Prophet ﷺ is standing along with the Sahaba Kiram. And I gave salam to Prophet ﷺ. And Rasulullah ﷺ, he replied by salam. And I said to Prophet ﷺ, O Prophet of Allah, why are you standing here along with your Sahaba Kiram? He said, I am waiting for Mohammed bin Ismail. I'm waiting for Imam Bukhari. And then the Imam who saw the dream, he says, after days, I received the news that Imam Bukhari has passed away. And I was told he passed away on that very night. When I look back, I came to the conclusion that that very night is the night in which I saw the dream. So this was Imam Bukhari rahimahullah. And Imam Muslim, you know, Imam Muslim used to say, O Imam Bukhari, O Muhammad bin Ismail, only that very person in whose heart there is grudge against you, he will dislike you. But you are a personality that I can testify there is no one like you in this dunya. And they used to say, one Imam says, Imam Bukhari rahimahullah was only created for the hadith. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala only created Imam Bukhari rahimahullah for the hadith of Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. and why he wrote this hadith, why he compiled this book. And behind this, there's a dream of Imam Bukhari rahimahullah. I think the time doesn't allow me. Inshallah, every Tuesday I will carry on from here. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make this gathering of a hadith for myself and all you beneficial, and means and source of our forgiveness, and means and source of our coming very close to Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Wa akhiru da'wana and alhamdulillahi rabbil alamin.
May Allah give us